La France avait envie de quelqu'un qui était jeune, qui incarnait le changement.
On croyait qu'il allait vraiment changer des choses en France.
The Chirac period was basically dead. Nothing happened. People wanted energy.
Son discours, c'était le discours de la volonté.
Je vais donc réhabiliter le travail, l'autorité.
Sarkozy, c'est quand même une bête politique.
Alors, y a-t-il des questions?
Inconstant or inconsistent.
I met someone who was like a 10-year-old boy.
Hé, Barack, Dimitri, Silvio.
Un homme qui n'est pas peut-être extrêmement sûr de lui-même.
Sarkozy, c'est un gros voyant avec une énorme affiche.
Oui, oui, oui.
It would have been unthinkable that a French president would reveal his personal relationship in the pages of a glossy magazine.
Sarkozy will go down as the man who destroyed the Fifth Republic.
Je vous remercie. Thank you.
In Bahrain, anti-regime protesters demanding the release of a jailed activist on hunger strike block roads by setting tires on fire. Also ahead, a new study shows unemployment in the UK is set to rise further this year and will remain high for the next 18 months. And a report says the UK government approved the rendition of a so-called terror suspect to Libya during the Gaddafi regime. It's 1:30 p.m. here in Tehran. This is PressTV's World News. In Bahrain, anti-regime protesters are demanding the release of a prominent human rights activist, Abdul Hadi al-Khawaja, but the Bahraini regime continues to defy calls to release the activist, who is on hunger strike and is said to be on the verge of death. Here's a closer look.
No let-up in anti-regime protests in Bahrain. The tiny Persian Gulf kingdom has been going through a revolution since February 2011. The peaceful demonstrators want an end to the rule of the Al Khalifa regime, which has lasted for several decades. Since last year, scores of protesters have been killed, some even tortured to death by regime forces with the help of troops from Saudi Arabia. The United States and its regional allies have fallen short of condemning the Bahraini regime's tough crackdown against the protesters. Many link Washington's silence to the fact that Bahrain hosts the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet. In the latest act of violence, regime forces attacked crowds of protesters demanding the release of prominent human rights activist Abdul Hadi al-Khawaja, who is serving a life sentence since last year for his role in anti-regime protests. The rights activist has been on hunger strike for more than 2 months in protest at his detention, which he considers illegal. Khawaja also holds Danish nationality, but the Bahraini authorities have rejected the request for his transfer to Denmark.
This regime is living in the dark ages, in the Middle Ages, and they don't understand the language of dialogue or the language of peace or the language of human rights or the language of freedom, and I guess the Denmark and the European Union have the responsibility to release Khawaja by threatening this authority, which will not understand except by force and by violent language.
Khawaja's health is now deteriorating, and is said to be on the verge of death. The regime has so far defied all national and international calls to set Khawaja free. It keeps many other activists behind bars on charges of organizing and attending protests.
People in northern Morocco have come out in yet another show of anger against tyranny and corruption. The demonstration took place in the city of Imzouren. The protesters slammed the government's crackdown on pro-reform rallies and demanded the release of political prisoners. Morocco has been witnessing rallies almost every week since last year, despite a number of reforms announced by King Mohammed. The changes grant more powers to the Prime Minister, but the King still has veto power over most government decisions. Moroccans want deeper political reforms as well as decisive action against corruption and unemployment. The British government has reportedly been involved in the rendition of a Libyan military leader. The UK government has denied complicity in the rendition of Abdelhakim Belhaj to Libya in 2004, but a letter from a top MI6 officer has confirmed it. The letter was found at an intelligence headquarters after the fall of Muammar Gaddafi. Belhaj, who currently heads the Libyan Military Council, says he was tortured in a jail in Libya. The former opposition figure was arrested en route to the UK on terror allegations and was rendered to Libya. Belhaj says the operation was organized by the MI6 and the CIA to help Gaddafi round up his enemies. Political commentator Jim Brand has told PressTV that the rendition program has been part of what he calls, quote, a hypocrisy policy, which was adopted following the 9/11 attacks in the US. Take a listen.